It's a new year. You're sitting at your desk with a coffee, scrolling through your finances from last year. The income was okay, maybe even better than the year before. But somehow, you're not further ahead. Your savings account looks almost identical to 12 months ago. Your investments barely moved. You made money, sure, but you didn't build anything. And there's this nagging feeling like you're running on a treadmill that's just fast enough to keep you in place, but not fast enough to actually get anywhere. You tell yourself this year will be different. You'll be more disciplined, more focused, more intentional, but deep down, you're not sure what to actually do differently. Most people think making money in 2026 is about finding the right opportunity, the right side hustle, the right investment, the right trend to ride. But that's not actually what separates people who build wealth from people who just earn income. See, most people focus on increasing their income. They chase raises, side gigs, passive income streams, anything to pump more money through the system. And that's not wrong. More income helps. But here's what nobody tells you. Income doesn't build wealth. The gap between income and expenses builds wealth. You can make $200,000 a year and still be living paycheck to paycheck if you're spending $195. Meanwhile, someone making $80,000 and spending $55 is becoming wealthy, slowly, quietly, inevitably. The game isn't about making more, it's about keeping more and deploying it strategically. I'm Zik, and what I'm about to walk you through isn't a hack. It's the exact framework that separates people who look back on 2026 with regret from people who look back and realize everything changed. Here's the framework. 3 moves, executed in order. Move 1. Build a cash position that eliminates financial fear. Move 2. Structure your life so your biggest expenses shrink relative to your income. Move 3. Systematically convert excess cash flow into assets that compound. Simple, not easy, but simple. And here's the invisible part. Each move unlocks the next one. They're sequential. You can't skip steps. Most people try to jump straight to move 3. They want to invest, they want to build wealth, but they're still living in financial chaos. No foundation, no structure. So they invest sporadically, panic sell during downturns, cash out early when they need money, and they end up worse off than if they'd done nothing. It's like trying to build the second floor of a house before you've poured the foundation. The structure collapses under its own weight. But when you execute these moves in sequence, something shifts. It's like water flowing downhill. Once you reach a certain elevation, gravity takes over. The momentum becomes self-reinforcing. Move number 1. Eliminate financial fear. Let's start with move 1. Build a cash position that eliminates financial fear. For most people, that number is around 6 months of expenses. Not 6 months of income, expenses. If you spend $4,000 a month, you need $24,000 in liquid savings, accessible, untouchable, except for genuine emergencies. And here's what that does psychologically. When you're living without a buffer, every unexpected expense is a crisis. Car repair, medical bill, broken appliance. Your nervous system is constantly on alert, scanning for threats. You're not thinking strategically, you're in survival mode, and survival mode makes terrible long-term decisions. But when you've got 6 months of expenses saved, the baseline anxiety disappears. Your car needs a transmission. Annoying. But not catastrophic. You handle it and move on. You get laid off. Stressful, but not desperate. You've got time to find the right next move instead of taking the first offer out of panic. That psychological shift is everything, because once you're not operating from fear, you can start operating from strategy. Now let's talk about how you actually build that cash position in 2026. Let's say you're starting from zero. You commit to saving $1,000 a month. Aggressive? Yes. Impossible? No. Month 6, 6,000 saved. Month 12, 12,000. Month 18, 18,000. Month 24, 24,000. 2 years. That's what it takes at that pace. But here's where most people fail. They don't protect the commitment. Month 4, they see a concert they want to go to, $500 they dip into savings just this once. Month 9, there's a great deal on a TV, I'll pay it back next month. Month 14, a friend's getting married in Cabo. I can't miss this. And suddenly year 2 arrives and they're still at 8,000. They've been saving for 2 years and have nothing to show for it. The difference between people who build this foundation and people who don't isn't willpower. It's a system. Automate the transfer the day after payday. Make it invisible. Make it non-negotiable. Treat your savings account like a bill. You wouldn't skip your rent payment because concert tickets went on sale. Don't skip your future either. Move number 2. Shrink your big expenses. Once you've got 6 months saved, move 2 becomes possible. Restructure your life so your biggest expenses shrink. Notice I didn't say cut expenses. I said restructure. This isn't about clipping coupons or skipping lattes. This is about the big 3: housing, transportation, and food. Let's start with housing. If you're spending more than 30% of your gross income on housing, you're bleeding. You might not feel it month to month, but over years, it's the difference between building wealth and staying stuck. Here's what that looks like in practice. Let's say you make $70,000 a year. 30% is $21,000 annually. That's $1,750 a month. If you're paying $2,500 a month because you wanted the nice apartment in the trendy neighborhood, you're overspending by $750 a month, $9,000 a year, $90,000 over 10 years. $90,000 that could have been working for you is instead making your landlord wealthier. Now, maybe that neighborhood is worth it. Maybe the proximity to work saves you 2 hours a day in commuting. Maybe the lifestyle is non-negotiable. But you need to see the trade clearly. Because that's not a $9,000 a year decision. It's a much bigger one when you factor in opportunity cost. And here's what happens when you get your big expenses under control. Suddenly, you're not stressed about money anymore. Not because you're making more, because the gap between what you earn and what you spend has widened. That gap is oxygen, it's mental space, it's options. When you're spending 95% of what you make, you're trapped. One bad month and you're underwater, one unexpected expense and you're borrowing. But when you're spending 70% of what you make, you've got room to save, room to invest, room to take risks that can actually change your trajectory, and psychologically, you shift from reactive to proactive. You're not scrambling to cover expenses, you're deciding where to allocate surplus. A completely different mental game. Move number 3, convert cash flow to assets. Once you've got your foundation and your expenses under control, move 3 becomes the engine. Systematically convert excess cash flow into assets that compound. This is where wealth actually gets built. And the beautiful thing is, by the time you reach move 3, you've already developed the discipline and systems to execute it consistently. Here's what this looks like with realistic numbers. Let's say after your 6-month emergency fund and controlled expenses, you've got $1,500 a month in surplus. You commit to investing $1,200 of it every month into a diversified portfolio of low-cost index funds. Year 1, $14,400 invested. With a 7% average return, it's worth about $15,000 by year end. Year 5, $72,000 invested, worth about $86,000. Year 10, $144,000 invested, worth about $207,000. You didn't get lucky, you didn't time the market, you just showed up consistently for 10 years. And here's the part that changes everything. By year 10, your investments are generating about $14,000 a year in growth. That's more than you're contributing annually. Your money is working harder than you are. But the real transformation isn't the account balance. It's who you became in the process. You became someone who can delay gratification for 10 years. That's rare. Most people can't delay gratification for 10 days. You became someone who doesn't panic when the market drops 20%. You've seen corrections before, you held, you kept buying. You became someone who trusts systems over emotions. When everyone around you was chasing the hot stock or the crypto surge, you stayed disciplined. That identity is worth more than $207,000 because that identity will build wealth in any environment with any opportunity. You're not just wealthier. You're someone who knows how to build wealth. And here's how these three moves change the way you experience life in 2026. Let's say the housing market corrects, prices drop 15% in your area. For most people, that's terrifying. Their home value just dropped. They feel poorer. But you've got 6 months of expenses saved, your housing costs are controlled, you've got surplus cash flow. You see opportunity. You call your bank. You're pre-approved for a mortgage at a great rate. You buy a rental property while everything's on sale. Same market event, completely different response. Or let's say you get a surprise medical bill, $6,000 after insurance. Below the foundation, that's a crisis. Credit card debt, payment plans, stress. Above the foundation, it's handled. You pay it from your emergency fund. You rebuild the fund over the next 6 months. Done. Same bill. Entirely different emotional experience. And here's what people miss about making money in 2026. It's not about optimizing the small stuff. It's about getting the structure right. You can cut your grocery bill by $50 a month and feel like you're being disciplined. But if you're driving a $40,000 car when a $20,000 car would serve you just as well, you're losing. That $20,000 difference, invested over 10 years at 7%, becomes $40,000. You didn't save $20,000 by buying the cheaper car. You gained $40,000 in future wealth. Or let's talk about career decisions. Are you staying in a job that's comfortable but offers no growth because switching feels risky? That risk aversion is costing you. If a career move could increase your income by 20%, $14,000 more a year on a $70,000 salary, and you don't take it because it feels uncertain, you're giving up $140,000 over 10 years. Even accounting for some lifestyle adjustment, that's probably $70,000 in lost wealth building capacity. The small optimizations feel productive, but they're not what moves the needle. And here's what happens at work when you've executed these three moves. You stop needing your job in the same way, not because you're going to quit, but because you could survive if you had to. That shift changes everything. You're in a performance review, your manager offers you a 3% raise, inflation's running at 4%, you're taking a real pay cut. Before the foundation, you accept it. You can't afford to push back. After the foundation, you counter. I appreciate the offer, but based on my contributions and market rates, I was expecting closer to 8%. Can we revisit this? You're not threatening, you're not entitled, you're just calm, clear, unafraid. And that posture changes outcomes. Sometimes they find the budget, sometimes they don't. But either way, you negotiated from a position of choice instead of desperation. That's what a financial foundation gives you. Not the ability to quit, the ability to stand up straight. But here's where people destroy their own progress. They execute moves 1 and 2, they've got their emergency fund, their expenses are controlled, they're starting to invest, and then they sabotage it. They see their investment account hit $30,000. They feel successful, so they celebrate. They buy a new car. I've earned this. They book an expensive vacation. I deserve this. They upgrade their apartment. I've been responsible long enough. And suddenly, they're back at square one. Emergency fund depleted, expenses inflated, investments cashed out. They treated the foundation like a trophy instead of a launch pad. Listen to me, the discipline that built your foundation is the same discipline that grows it. There's no graduation ceremony where you get to stop being intentional. Every dollar you pull out early is a dollar that can't compound into future freedom. Every choice you make in 2026 isn't just about today's price tag, it's about tomorrow's opportunity cost. Let's say you're thinking about upgrading your car. You'd spend $30,000. That $30,000 invested at 7% for 20 years becomes $116,000. So you're not buying a $30,000 car, you're buying a $116,000 car in future purchasing power. Maybe that's worth it. Maybe the safety features, the reliability, the joy of driving it justifies the trade. But most people don't see it that way. They just see the sticker price. They finance it, rationalize it, and move on. And then they wonder why they never build wealth. The trade-offs need to be clear. not judgmental, just clear. When you spend money, you're not buying a thing. You're choosing one future over another. Make sure you're choosing the future you actually want. Look, I'm not saying 2026 is going to make you a millionaire. It might not. But if you execute these three moves, build the foundation, control the structure, invest the surplus, you're going to look back on this year as the inflection point. The year you stopped reacting to your financial life and started designing it. The year you became someone who keeps commitments to themselves. The year you realized wealth isn't about what you make, it's about what you keep and what you do with it. So here's what I want you to do. Sit down this week, run the numbers. Where are you on these three moves? Do you have 6 months of expenses saved? If not, build the plan to get there. Are your big expenses under control? If not, figure out what needs to change. Are you systematically investing your surplus? If not, set up the automation today. This isn't complicated, but it is hard, because it requires you to make choices today that benefit someone you haven't met yet, your future self. But that future self is counting on you. They're hoping you'll have the discipline now so they can have the freedom later. Don't let them down. This is Zik. Make 2026 the year everything changed.